"Why don't you just disappear?" my stepdaughter snapped. Her mother didn't hesitate. "We'd be better off without you." I stayed silent, packed my bags, and left. This morning, I woke up to 13 missed calls. "Why don't you just disappear?" The words hung in the air like a sharp blade, trembling right before the cut. Lily, my 16-year-old stepdaughter, stood at the foot of the stairs, arms crossed, eyes blazing with the kind of teenage fury that didn't just come from a single fight. It was years in the making. I wasn't her real father. I was the outsider, the intruder who walked into her life, into her home, and tried to play house. Before I could even summon a reply, Melissa, my wife, the woman I had left my old life for, delivered the final blow. "We'd be better off without you." No hesitation, no flicker of guilt or regret. The same woman who once told me I made her feel safe now saw me as disposable, like some extra piece of furniture that never fit in the room. My fingers twitched at my sides, fists forming and unforming, but no words came. What was there left to say? I had spent 3 years trying to earn a place in this family, trying to be patient with Lily's tantrums, with Melissa's divided loyalty. I knew it was a battle I might never win, but I never expected to lose this brutally. I walked upstairs, every step heavier than the last. In our bedroom, the air felt colder, emptier, like even the walls knew I didn't belong. I took a duffel bag from the closet and started packing without thought. Shirts, jeans, a pair of running shoes I hadn't worn in months. Toothbrush, razor. My hand hesitated over the framed picture on the nightstand. The 3 of us at the lake house, forced smiles all around. I left it behind. Lily's bedroom door was slightly ajar as I walked past. I saw her reflection in the vanity mirror, her back turned, her hands clenched into tight fists on her desk. She didn't turn around. Melissa stood in the hallway, arms folded tight across her chest, her eyes narrowed and lips pressed into a thin line. Not a word passed between us. Just silence. The kind of silence you can't come back from. I stepped out into the night at exactly 11:47 p.m., the air biting my skin, the streets eerily quiet. My car sat at the curb, a place I had parked so many times, always returning to the same home that no longer felt like mine. Tonight I drove away with no destination in mind. The first motel I found was one of those roadside places no one remembers. Flickering neon sign, cracked pavement, and a room that smelled faintly of bleach and something sour beneath it. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, staring at the screen. No messages, no missed calls. Of course not. They got exactly what they wanted. Sleep came in fits and starts, broken by dreams of locked doors and silent rooms. Then the phone buzzed. One missed call, then another, and another. By the time I sat up, the screen glowed with 13 missed calls, all from Melissa. My stomach clenched with something between panic and disbelief. Was this some cruel afterthought? An apology too late? Or worse, something had happened. I called back, the line barely ringing once before her voice broke through, raw and trembling. "She's gone," she said. My mind reeled. "Who?" "Lily. She ran away. I thought maybe she was looking for you, but she's not here, and I don't know where she went, and I need you to—" Her voice cracked into sobs. In all the years Lily had despised me, she had never run away. She had her ways of rebelling, sneaking out, slamming doors, skipping dinner. But this was different. This was serious. "Stay there," I said, already pulling on my jacket. "I'm coming back." The irony wasn't lost on me. Barely hours after they told me to disappear, I was the one they needed to find her. I drove through the empty streets, headlights slicing through the early dawn mist. Every mile felt like unraveling a knot inside my chest, tighter with each memory. The fights, the tears, the cautious truce that never held for long. All of it leading to this. The house was just as I left it. Dark, quiet, except for the living room light Melissa had left on. She stood in the doorway, her hair disheveled, eyes rimmed red, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "She left her phone," Melissa said before I could ask. "She took some clothes. That's all I know." "Any idea where she'd go?" I asked. Melissa shook her head. She's been so angry lately. I thought it was just, I didn't think. Her voice broke again, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the woman I fell in love with, vulnerable, scared, human. I didn't have time to dwell on it. We needed to find Lily. I stepped into her room, a place I had always been unwelcome. Posters half torn off the walls, clothes scattered, but the desk was oddly clean, except for a single sheet of paper. "I'm done. Don't bother looking for me." The words were scrawled in Lily's sharp, jagged handwriting, the kind she used when she was barely holding herself together. It wasn't a threat. It was a goodbye. "Did she say anything before I left?" I asked Melissa. "She was quiet," Melissa said, her voice thin. "Too quiet." I tried to remember the last conversation we had, some meaningless argument over curfew or her grades. None of it seemed important now. "We'll find her," I said, though I wasn't sure if it was a promise or a prayer. Melissa's phone rang again, an unknown number. She answered, her face draining of color within seconds. "It's the police," she whispered. "They found her bag. By the bridge." My pulse spiked. That bridge. The one just outside town where kids went to smoke, drink, and sometimes do things they couldn't take back. Without a word, I grabbed my keys and ran. Melissa followed, barefoot on the cold driveway, tears streaming down her face. The bridge was empty when we got there, the sky turning pale with the first light of day. Lily's bag sat on the ground, her jacket folded neatly beside it. Too neat, like she wanted someone to find it, but there was no sign of Lily. I stepped to the railing, looking down into the slow, dark water below. My breath caught. For the first time since I met her, I couldn't read her. I didn't know if she was hiding, running, or if she was already gone. Melissa's hand clutched my arm, nails digging into my skin. "We have to find her." I stared at the water, the silence pressing down like a weight, and knew that no matter how much Lily hated me, I couldn't leave until I brought her back. Whether she wanted me to or not. The sun had barely lifted above the horizon, but the cold was already settling into my bones. Standing on that bridge, staring down at the sluggish water below, I realized how quickly everything had spiraled. Just a few hours ago, I was nothing but a ghost leaving a house where I wasn't wanted. Now I was standing beside my wife, the same woman who told me we'd be better off without me, while we both searched for the daughter who wanted me gone. Melissa's grip on my arm tightened as her breathing grew rapid. She wouldn't... Her voice faltered, cracking under the weight of her own fear. She wouldn't jump, would she? I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell her no, that Lily was stubborn, angry, rebellious, but not hopeless. But the truth was, I didn't know her well enough to make that promise. "Let's not assume the worst," I said, though the churning in my stomach told me we might already be too late. We called the police again, giving them every detail we could think of, where she might go, anyone she might contact. But the officers' polite reassurances felt thin, stretched over something darker. Teen runaways were common. Most came back within a day or two. But the bag by the bridge? That changed everything. The search began almost immediately. Officers walking the shoreline, calling Lily's name into the mist, their voices bouncing back with no reply. Melissa's hands trembled, fingers curling and uncurling around her phone. Every few minutes she would check, hoping Lily had magically texted or called. Nothing. Where else would she go? I asked quietly. Melissa shook her head. "I don't know anymore." That was the most honest thing she'd said to me in months. The waiting was unbearable. We returned to the house to wait for any updates from the search team, but the silence pressed down on us like a weight. Melissa sat curled on the couch, her knees tucked up to her chest, eyes hollow. "She always blamed you," she said suddenly. I turned from the window, unsure if she was talking to me or herself. "Even when it wasn't your fault," Melissa continued, voice low. "After her dad left, she blamed me at first. But then you came, and it was easier to make you the villain." I stayed silent. I knew this already. I had lived it every day for 3 years. But hearing her say it out loud was different, like she was peeling back her own layers, exposing things she'd kept buried. "She said I chose you over her," Melissa whispered. "Did you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I could have both of you. I thought if I loved you enough, if I was patient enough, she'd see how much you cared." Her voice broke. "But maybe I was wrong." It wasn't the time for blame or for forgiveness. All that mattered now was finding Lily. Hours crawled by. No calls, no updates, until the phone rang. Melissa lunged for it, fumbling the call to speaker. "We found something," the officer said. "A witness reported seeing someone matching Lily's description near the old train yard on the east side." The train yard. My stomach twisted. That place was off-limits for a reason. Abandoned cars, rusted tracks, and too many places for someone to get hurt. We were out the door before the call ended. The train yard was a maze of corroded metal and cracked concrete. Graffiti covered every inch of exposed surface, crude symbols and slurs blending into something almost beautiful beneath the early morning sun. Melissa's breath came in short gasps as we walked, calling Lily's name, our voices swallowed by the vast emptiness. And then, a sound. A faint, choked sob from somewhere behind a rusted shipping container. "Lily?" Melissa's voice cracked, the fear making it almost unrecognizable. We rounded the corner, and there she was, huddled against the cold metal, knees drawn to her chest, her face streaked with tears and dirt. Her hands were trembling, her phone lying broken beside her. "Lily!" Melissa rushed forward, dropping to her knees, wrapping her daughter in a desperate, trembling embrace. For a moment, Lily resisted, her body stiff with anger or fear. But then she crumbled, sobbing into her mother's shoulder, all the walls she had built over the years collapsing in one trembling breath. I stood back, unsure if I belonged in that moment. When the sobbing quieted, Melissa whispered, "Why did you run, baby?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "I thought you hated me." Melissa froze. "What? No, never." "I heard you," Lily said, voice cracking. "That night, after I yelled at him, you said we'd be better off without him." Her swollen eyes flicked to me, and something like guilt flickered there. "But I thought you meant me too." Melissa shook her head fiercely. "I was angry. But I was wrong. I didn't want to be here if you didn't want me," Lily whispered. Melissa's tears flowed freely now, her hands cradling Lily's face. "I want you. I've always wanted you." Lily's gaze shifted to me, hesitant, unsure. "And him?" I stepped closer, my voice soft. "I know I'm not your dad. I never wanted to replace him, but I'm here. Even when you wanted me gone, I'm still here." Lily's lip quivered, but she didn't pull away. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a clean slate, but it was something. We took Lily home, her small hand clutching Melissa's as they walked through the door together. The house felt warmer, more fragile somehow, like a place still healing from an earthquake. There were no big apologies that day, no sweeping speeches or tearful reconciliations, just small moments. Melissa making Lily's favorite tea, me fixing the wobbly leg on her desk without being asked. Later that night, as Melissa and Lily sat together on the couch, I stood in the doorway, unsure if I belonged. "Are you staying?" Lily asked suddenly. The question held no malice this time, just quiet curiosity. "If you want me to," I said. Lily's gaze met mine, something softer in her eyes now. "I don't know." And for the first time, that was enough. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more watching videos.